Hello everyone. Right away I want to thank you for coming back to my channel for another video. Today I am recording in Wisconsin. Normally I'm in California. It is much warmer and I am freezing right now. So hopefully, things still go according to plan. But anyways, today we are talking about one of the most important books I've ever read. A book that basically chews me up and spits me out every time I sit down with it. And the book is the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Okay, so first things first. Why do I think this video is worth your time? A couple of things. Like I say in almost all my videos, my goal for this video is to help you help yourself. I want to help you actualize your full potential. I want to help you achieve your goals, whatever they may be. Talking about the Gulag Archipelago specifically though, I think this video can be worth your time regardless of whether or not you've read the book, whether or not you want to read the book. I'll say the same thing to you that I told my students when I assigned excerpts from this book. The Gulag Archipelago is one of those books that can profoundly change your life. It's considered the greatest work of nonfiction of the 20th century. And when we consider everything that I guess happened in the 20th century and all of the great works of literature and of nonfiction that were produced during that time, it really means something, having this book be described as the greatest work of nonfiction in the 20th century. And if it needs to be said, I really do believe that that means something. I think it speaks to the book's ability to deepen our understanding of human beings, an idea that I believe can enrich our lives and color the way we interact with the world around us. So, without further ado, let's dig in. Let's talk about the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. One of the portions I assigned my undergraduates at Johns Hopkins University is titled The Soul and Barbed Wire. The chapter begins with a quote from 1 Corinthians. The quote is as follows: "Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed." Almost any time I read that verse, I get chills, and I think it's because of the 15 or so pages that follow. And what does follow is a chapter titled The Ascent, which is an allusion to the rapture, to Christ's return to earth for those who belong to him. And in The Ascent, Solzhenitsyn begins by talking about his observations on suicide, or rather the surprising lack of suicides during his time in the Gulag. A suicide, he writes, is always a bankrupt. Always a human being in a blind alley, a human being who has gambled his life and lost and is without the will to continue the struggle. If these millions of helpless and pitiful vermin, the prisoners, he means, if these millions of helpless and pitiful vermin did not put an end to themselves, this meant some kind of invincible feeling was alive inside of them, some very powerful idea. This was their feeling of universal innocence. It was the sense of an ordeal of the entire people. And this is one of the foundational ideas that the chapter is built around, how those who were sent to the gulags, the overwhelming majority of them being innocent of any crime, having only found themselves in prison because of the corruption of the Soviet system, how these people lived with the idea that they had done nothing wrong. And this is where the chapter begins to get, grim and deep and I think profound. So Solzhenitsyn continues, "There is nothing that we can do to be freed, and nothing is going to save us. We now love to recall our past, how well we used to live even when we lived badly, how many unused opportunities there were. When will we now make up for it? If I only manage to survive, oh, how differently, how wisely I am going to live." And this is in reference to the ideas a prisoner would have, the thoughts a prisoner would encounter while in a gulag, while imprisoned. And Solzhenitsyn continues, and the conclusion is survive to reach it, survive at any price. This is simply a turn of phrase, a sort of habit of speech, at any price. But then the words swell up with their full meaning, and an awesome vow takes shape: to survive at any price. price. Okay, so what do we have so far? We have, the thoughts a prisoner encounters. We have the prisoner remembering their life outside of the camp, how much they long for it, how they wish to live better. And the end that those thoughts work toward is, it's a kind of a motivational force to survive, begins to, take root and begins to grow. And Solzhenitsyn goes on to write about exactly what it means to survive a prison sentence in the Gulag Archipelago, how incredibly difficult and painful and terrible it is. He concludes the paragraph with two terrifying sentences that I'll read now. He writes, quote, "But simply to survive does not mean, quote, at any price. At any price means at the price of someone else." And Solzhenitsyn goes on to say that it was a fork in the road that all prisoners had to contend with, to survive at the price of someone else or to perish. And keep in mind that I've only briefly touched on 2 pages from a book that's more than 700 pages long, and that's just the abridged version. I want to say that the Gulag Archipelago, as it was originally published or written, whatever the right way of saying it is, I want to say is in excess of 2,000 pages, although I might be wrong, but I don't think so. Regardless of that, though, this is where things start to get especially deep. Solzhenitsyn describes the 2 options that every prisoner faced: to be changed by the Gulag or to perish. The remainder of this chapter, among any number of other things, dissects what exactly that phrase, to survive at any price, really means and how it influenced human behavior while imprisoned. And hopefully by this point you're beginning to get some idea of why I think this is such a powerful book and why I assigned it. Near the end of the chapter, Solzhenitsyn writes, "The rule of your life is this: do not rejoice when you have found, do not weep when you have lost. Your soul, which formerly was dry, now ripens from suffering." I think those are 2 sentences that are as powerful as any you'll find. And in closing, I'll say this much. I think this book is powerful. I think it can change the way you think about the world. I've tried assigning it for class because I think it is capable of teaching virtually everyone about what they're capable of in terms of both good and evil, and kind of, let's say, the depths of the human spirit, of the human soul. If you're willing to let it, I think Solzhenitsyn's book can deepen your understanding of the world around you. It can produce something that closely approximates a religious experience. When I first read this book, I think it was a couple of years ago. I want to say I was 20 years old, and I remember that shortly after I finished reading it, I could feel myself changing. I felt a greater appreciation for the civilization I found myself born into, for the circumstances that I found myself born into. I realized that I was capable of both good and evil. To mention one more quote from the chapter I'm discussing today, I realized that the line separating good and evil passes not through state, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart. Even within hearts overwhelmed by evil, one small bridgehead of good is retained, and even in the best of all hearts, there remains an uprooted small corner of evil. These are just a few examples that I picked out of quotes that really kind of, they puncture me. They feel like they kind of dig their claws into me and start kind of moving the pieces around. And I think it feels to me like they deepen my understanding of what I'm capable of, what other people are capable of. And, it offers me the opportunity to learn from the experience, from the suffering of others in a way that, it feels personal and intimate. I want to, there are hundreds of first-hand accounts that are crammed into the Gulag Archipelago. And in that way, I think the text is so special and so valuable because it's like the distilled collection of hundreds of human beings' lives who suffered immensely, and I just don't think there's any limit to the value that that can offer us. Solzhenitsyn is the kind of writer whose prose can follow you wherever you go if you're willing to allow him. His wisdom can color the landscape around you and change you for the better. I'll close with one final quote. I promise this is the last quote. Alas, Solzhenitsyn writes, all the evil of the 20th century is possible everywhere on earth, yet I have not given up all hope that human beings and nations may be able, in spite of it all, to learn from the experience of other people without having to go through it personally, end quote. And, I really believe that that's something worth thinking about, the idea of learning from the material that we read so that we might not have to relive the sorts of atrocities that have already plagued humanity to kind of gain some experience from them. And that, I think, is kind of where this book's lifeblood, where it grows out of. It's, I mentioned before, it's like the distilled truth of hundreds of human lives kind of crammed into a single volume. And that's beautiful, and it's profound, and it's the kind of thing that I think can really change how you interact with the present. And I've said before that I want to help you actualize your full potential and achieve your goals. And I think a great way to do that is to be willing to expose yourself to information that is difficult to digest, but can offer you the benefit of, let's say, deepening your understanding of the human spirit and what you're capable of. I think the Gulag Archipelago can do that. And it's why I assigned the Gulag Archipelago for my course. Okay, that's everything I've got. Before I go, I want to thank you, my wonderful viewer, for sticking with me to the end. I also want to thank my video editors, Joe and Bach. I couldn't do this without you guys. I really, really appreciate your help. And again, I want to thank you one more time, my lovely viewer. If you found this video useful or helpful or interesting, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Okay, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.